Now, look, as well as the nursing shortage, which is not going to be solved by a special episode of Shortland Street, new figures out show an increased, almost a doubling in turnover of frontline and administrative police staff in the last year, which raises the question, why are people leaving the police force? And is this, or does this represent a looming staffing crisis in law enforcement? To find out what is going on and whether this trend can be stopped or will continue, we're joined by Chris Cahill from the Police Association. Chris, nice to have you back on the platform. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Sean.
All right, let's look at these figures. Can you run us through them and what sort of change have they represent in terms of staff retention or turnover in the police force?
Well, I think we have to acknowledge we're starting off a low base because we did drop the attrition rate out of police dropped appreciably during COVID, down to as low as sort of 2%.
Yeah.
But to jump quickly to, and this is sworn officers I'm talking about at this stage,
yeah,
to jump quickly up to closer to 5%, and look, I believe it's trending higher than that, starts to sort of set up alarm bells to me. And that's at the same time as I've been going around the country. I've spent the last month going around from the top of the north all the way to the bottom. And anecdotally, I'm hearing about more people deciding to leave. And the group that worries me the most is it's the experienced but not ready for retirement staff. So it's the 40 to mid 50-year-olds that are
so these people who have got working life left in them.
Exactly. I mean, we know in police we've got a retirement bubble heading our way.
Yep.
There's no doubt about that. And it's always an issue we're going to have to deal with. But these are people well before retirement. And the other ones I'm worried about, and what I'm hearing is it's just the demand. It's just the constant increase in demand. So we certainly acknowledge we've had an increase in police numbers, but it's been swamped by 60% increases in demand for things like family harm, mental health call-outs, the gang stuff, all that. And that is the worry for me, is that staff are just feel swamped. And there's jobs out there at the moment, and they're saying this is the time to jump.
And I guess when you talk about the age of that cohort or that increase in leaving the force, they're people who clearly think, I can reskill and have another career before my retirement, and if I'm going to do it, I need to do it now.
Yeah, that's right. And look, we went through this, probably 30 years ago. We went, I've been around a while, 20, 30 years ago, we had this horrible scheme called PERF, where basically people had to get out they basically had to jump at 49. And, I was a young officer then and saw all these great experienced people that I should have been learning from leaving. And that's what worries me. We don't want to lose those people again, because we've just recruited, over the last few years, 3,000 new young officers, and they need these experienced officers to mentor them.
Chris, certainly from, if you can consume all your news or information about police and policing through the mainstream media, there's no doubt the perception is that we are living at a time where police officers' jobs are more difficult. They are dealing, certainly it would appear, with more violence in frontline policing. And I guess we live in a society which does not appear to be as coherent or as peaceful as it once was.
Yeah, that certainly appears to be the case. I mean, we know there was 2,000 police officers assaulted in the last 12 months, which is a national disgrace, and that has an impact. And it's interesting, when I talk to the officers, in some ways it's not as bad for them because they're dealing with it. It's their whānau sitting at home, their partners, their children who worry about them, that it actually adds to that stress really appreciably. So without a doubt, that's a concern. And look, I don't want to paint this all doom and gloom. We've got amazing police officers and support staff out there that love working for police and do a really good job. But there's some frustrations as well. And one is around the level of violence they face. But the other also is the overwhelming demand around things from family harm and mental health, that they believe a lot of that belongs with other government departments, not with policing.
Yeah, Chris, I thank you for not, if you like, ramping this up further. If it's a trend we can identify now and not panic about, how might we knock the edge off this? How might we get back to having the trend run in the right direction, or to be retaining the police and particularly the experienced officers that we need?
Well, look, I think I acknowledge police are doing some good stuff around frontline safety enhancement skills training, so basically making things safer through training, which is important. I think we have to look at whether there's other equipment that is suitable to use for staff. I think one of the issues that comes a lot is body cameras. Can that make for a safer environment for police as well? Mm-hmm. But I think the government has to get together. We need police, justice, corrections, Oranga Tamariki, health to all get together and look at some of the big drivers of crime and say, are we actually tackling these as a team? Because if we can tackle some of those, we can reduce some of the demand. And the moment it feels like police are doing too much in areas that actually other government departments should be doing.
Did something like the protest at Parliament have an effect, do you think?
Yes and no. I mean, some officers will say, it was pretty traumatic. It was pretty hard, but they'll also say the camaraderie that came out through it actually made it an event that they were really proud to be part of. So in some ways, it made people realise what being in police and being part of a big team is. But for some, it was probably just a step too far, and they realised it was time for them
because a protest like that
on.
Steps, I think, could perceptively put police as a group against society, whereas, of course, in most instances, I would look at police as being on the side of communities and on the side of society. An event like that, a demonstration like that, can fracture things a little.
Yeah, it can a bit. I think, without a doubt, we had it within the police. I had it within my own membership, and I've learned lessons from it, that the whole issue of COVID, vaccines, everything has created a lot of division. And I think police were at the front of that division on that day. And so I think it is a factor for some. But on the other hand, it's also the support that they got from New Zealanders, and particularly Wellingtonians after it, also reminded those officers that actually most New Zealanders do support them.
Chris, you're prepared to make a prediction for, the next round of retention figures or turnover figures in the police? Do you think this trend will continue if nothing's done, or are you hopeful it can be arrested?
I'm a bit concerned. Look, I'm a bit concerned, to be honest, and I think we're going to be part of a global problem. I recently was at an international conference of police unions, and around the world the most common problem is they're leaving in higher numbers than ever before, and they can't recruit. Now, we've been lucky in New Zealand, we've been able to recruit, but I think what's going to happen, Australia are desperate. They're going to do what they're going to do with our nurses and our teachers. They're going to come over here and start poaching, and I think that is the biggest risk we have, to start losing some good young officers. So I'm pretty concerned, to be honest, and we're going to have to keep a close eye on it.
Chris, I thank you very much indeed for your time this morning discussing an issue we wouldn't want to see, to be honest, get any worse than it is. That is Chris Cahill from the Police Association. Turnover of police officers climbing, and as he says, that's interesting, isn't people who are just perfing out a few years early like they used to. This is officers who might be re-careering, at the age of 40 or 50, and they're experienced people whose experience is passed on to younger recruits, a really important part of keeping a good policing culture in New Zealand. And believe me, folks, no matter what you say about them, fascists, our police are a bloody good police force by international standards, incredibly good police force, and I, for one, would like to keep it that way.